All right.
That's right.
That's right, baby.
When you hear the howl, you know we're on the prowl. Welcome, everybody, friends and enemies, to The Mindful Warrior, episode number 16. Happy New Year. Happy New Year, everybody. Happy New Year, Eb.
Happy New Year, Nate.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
It's a few days into the new year, and for our first podcast of 2018, we are not going to be interviewing a guest today. What we're going to do is just Eben and I are going to be talking about some current issues that are important to us, important to the football world, the cannabis world. But one thing we're going to do today, which is really exciting,
Really fun.
really exciting stuff, is we're going to get our producer in on the mix, and he's going to uncork that larynx.
Jedediah.
Oh, it feels so good to let it out.
So, Jed, tell us what's in store for us today. You're going to be donning the hat of kind of the conductor here and leading us through this.
Yeah, I'm going to moderate this conversation because you guys have brain damage. Going to keep everything moving quickly and succinctly.
It's not funny,
CTE.
but it is.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess.
So we're going to be talking about the NFL season, a little quick recap, some interesting stories. We got Eben's former Jacksonville Jaguars in the playoff hunt, in the playoff race.
Whoa.
Super Bowl coming.
Home field advantage.
Woo!
Yeah.
Holy shit.
And then, we're going to talk about concussion protocol. And then we're going to, segue into some cannabis news because we had some really exciting news this morning.
Wah, wah, wah.
Yeah, about Jeff Sessions reversing some earlier era cannabis laws. So we're going to get to all that.
Seems to me if Jeff Sessions had a session himself, he wouldn't be
He'd be much better off.
Exactly. He needs to smoke a joint, but we'll get to that later.
We'll get to that.
So we're going to start with the NFL season. How are you guys feeling? Did you watch a lot of games this season?
I didn't watch too many games. I caught a few here and there. It was it feels good not to watch.
Yeah, I didn't watch a lot this year either. It was the 1 year over the last 5 or 10 years where I haven't paid much attention. I have been writing about it, so I've had to pay attention over the last 5 years. But geez, this year felt kind of boring. Like it didn't feel like it had that same energy around it.
Well, I felt like there was a lot of fucking dark energy around it this year.
Yeah.
Like a lot of guys had some really terrible injuries.
Yeah.
That was the extent of what I saw from the season. There was a ton of guys getting really brutally injured. Some guys that I knew personally really well, was teammates with,
really?
had some really horrific injuries. And, I thought that was it really left a sour sort of aroma around the whole season for me.
Did anything leave a sweet aroma in your mouth
Well,
about this season?
Sweet aroma.
What do you guys enjoy about the game still, or watching the game? Is there anything that really gets you excited?
I like watching what I believe are the best athletes on the planet.
yeah.
Doing really amazing things with their body and their skill and their toughness and their ability to throw themselves around, and the camaraderie that's obviously created on the field. These guys love each other. They're out, to protect each other, and I do respect that aspect of the game. But I believe that the game has become very, very predictable in a way that's kind of contributing, I think, to some of the falling ratings. And it's just like, you hear the same old analysts talking about Tom Brady's jockstrap every night. And it's like, I think you're losing some of your audience with the NFL's inability to adapt to a modern age. I think what you saw this year...
It's like this rhythmic distraction that we get into. Like, how many touchdowns is he throwing this year? How many fucking, how many yards has he got rushing? It's like, dude, it's the same every fucking time.
Yeah. And then we had to deal this year with the anthem protests, the political nature of the game, and what has become a forced political choice that players are forced to make at the beginning of a game when they have a camera shoved in their face for the national anthem. And I think the union needs to protect them better and figure out a way to not let them be taken advantage of like that. because then it becomes a hot topic issue that our president wants to get involved in, and then people forget that really these are fucking the best athletes in the world performing for us, and all they want to do really is play and be taken care of off the field.
Well, that's where these guys, it really becomes a slavery. This idea of.
But you can't say that. You can't say that they're slaves. This is not real slavery, Eben.
Well, I mean, you're getting paid this, large sums of money, yet you have no rights to privacy. You have no rights to not making the comment to the media. You have no rights to your own
health,
your
doctor's
your
files.
HIPAA. You have no HIPAA rights. I mean, your fucking injuries and the things that you're dealing with physically are posted on the ticker on fucking ESPN, every single day throughout the year.
Yeah. Just to even it out, I want to let everybody know I cut my thumb really bad on my Ninja blender.
There you go, Joe.
So, wow. See, imagine if that was now on CNN.
Yeah.
They were talking about Jed's injury with his Ninja blender, and will he be ready to Ninja blend again?
Yeah. This is
by next week.
Second finger cut in the last month. It's like, should we even be giving me knives? Is what the question really is.
I think there's a psychology in here that's interesting. So if you were to turn on the TV today and watch content on TV, people speculating as to whether you are going to be ready to go again on Saturday to cut, do you think that would speed up your recovery? What do you think that would do to you psychologically?
I think it would break me psychologically after a week or two. I don't think I can handle that kind of scrutiny. No, not at all. I don't even. It took a lot just to admit that on the air or on the pod.
Right.
About cutting my hand in a food processor.
Right. And injury is a source of ridicule too for some players. It's like it's like a taboo, If you get hurt, you're injury prone and you're fragile and shit. Meanwhile, like if any of these, if the average American were to go out on that field and take that same hit, they'd probably end up in the hospital.
Absolutely,
crippled.
You'd be dead.
Well, people also don't call out sick to work. It's like the same mentality. You don't want to be seen as weak.
Right.
You go into work. Oh, I can do it. I'm just going to be sick and get everybody else sick, and
right.
I'm going to get my $50,000 a year.
Right.
It's going to be great.
Well, in the NFL, I never took one sick day ever. I was never late for a meeting, and I'd be on my deathbed with the flu or anything. I'd going into work.
Well, it's very heroic.
Oh, yeah.
It's a heroic, glorious venture we're all on,
right.
in the league. I was thinking about that. I was like, what the fuck, man, keeps people just coming back, right? What keeps us coming back? And it's the glory. This is our contemporary Greek mythology. These are our gods displaying before us, the, epitome, the mountainous peaks of human potential. Like you said, what do we enjoy about the game? These are the best athletes in the world. I mean, this is our form of that. These are our myths. These are our mythological heroes of the contemporary day. Our NFL athletes, our fighters, anyone in these violent types of games. These are our gladiators, and I think that's just a really that's one of the driving forces of the whole thing.
We're also wired to fight for something.
Right.
We're wired for this tribal communal warfare.
Yes.
We're wired to want
to be a
community
part of the tribe.
sacrifice.
Yes.
Exactly. And so when we are, in our modern society, when we just punch the clock, go to college, get a career, retreat to a house alone where we get married and we get to sit on the internet and watch TV shows all day, there's a sense of disconnectedness from that fight that I think is scratched in football, and we as the players feel everyone else behind us, pushing their energy into our fight. Yeah. And it really feels important, You feel part of something and you feel like you're carrying their identity out onto that field. And, especially when you do, we're wearing different colors than the other team. Yeah. We're representing a different city. A region. This is like gangs, I miss that part of it. I miss that kind of stuff. I miss feeling like a warrior.
I do. I miss that as well.
And I guess that's why we're doing this podcast, is to figure out how do you harness the energy of the warrior
and bring that into the rest of life,
and not be taken advantage of politically at the same time.
Yeah,
and do it mindfully.
Exactly.
Yeah, wrap it up. There you go. So now that we are heading into playoffs, you got 20 teams. who the season's over for. So what is that like for you guys? Eben, you were never on a team that made the playoffs, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
And Nate, you guys had playoffs?
We made the playoffs. Yeah, we made the playoffs half the time.
That's nice.
So Eben, what's that feeling like when that you know the season's over for sure? Last game. What's it like, man? You guys...
I've been on the teams where guys were planning out their postseason vacation in like week 5. And that sucks. That's fucking miserable, man. Like the year, it looks so bad that you're already looking. I mean, that's going to be a long season. And I've been on those teams. And actually in Jacksonville, I was on one of those teams. And that's not fun. That is such a fucking relief when that year is over. You're like, God, good riddance. Let's get on to the next one. Let's put that one to bed and just move on. I've been on a couple teams where we were really in that fight, in that wild card race until the last game. And those are really the teams. It's so hard to win in the NFL. It's such a incredible. It takes such an effort to win football games in the NFL. And to even be on that precipice of almost making it to the playoffs, like once in Chicago, a couple times early on in Jacksonville, we were close. But you're exhausted at the end of the year, and somehow, in that final game, you're all in. You're all in till the last second, and as exhausted as you are, you would be willing to give it another week, and then another week after that. You could dive deep and find that energy in yourself, in your soul. But those seasons didn't end up in the playoffs, and there was a lot of grief in leaving those teams, because those were both special groups of guys. It was like special groups of players that I'd been with, a special group of coaches. And, you feel this sort of, man, it's a shame more didn't come out of that. But then again, it's always this idea of next year, let's get working for next year. It was like Jerry Rice Monday after the Super Bowl. It's fucking running routes, getting ready for the next season. But it is that mentality.
Yeah, for
sure. That sounds like a coping mechanism too. Just
sure,
like, hey,
absolutely.
This is
Football
what I know.
Is a coping mechanism.
Yeah.
Football.
Well, every team at the beginning of the season believes this is our year. Exactly. We're going to win the Super Bowl. It's Super Bowl or bust. So there's 31 failures every year, which makes everyone, work a lot harder the next offseason and stay hungry. But it also keeps us all feeling like failures. Even when we, attain the pinnacle of our profession, we still feel like pieces of shit because
we haven't done enough.
You never have done enough.
Yeah.
Now, Nate, when you're heading into those playoffs on a team, even if you're not a favorite, you guys believe, right? Everybody's 100% believes that, okay, yeah, we're here. New season starts today. We got to win 3-4 games.
Yeah.
Get to the Super Bowl win.
Although my second year in Denver, my first 3 years in Denver, we made the playoffs all 3 years. The first 2, we were out after the first wild card game. Both of them were in Indianapolis. Both of them at the hands of Peyton Manning. Both of them we got rolled. The following year, the third year, we won we made it all the way to the AFC Championship game and had a couple home games. But after the first playoff game when we got rolled, going into that second playoff game the next year, I remember a locker room confrontation between 2 defensive players, and one of them was a defensive lineman. And he said something under his breath at his locker like, man, what does it matter, man? We're going to get our ass whooped next week anyway. Right. And our starting middle linebacker, who was just a badass dude, Al Wilson, got really pissed off. He stood up and got in his fucking face, and they almost fought right there. Like, no, man, we're not going to lose,
Right.
And that's what you need. You need those leaders in the locker room like we had in Denver when I got there that allowed us to be really, really good every year. A lot of those guys started to leave, and then our team fell apart. Jake Plummer left, and then we missed playoffs for the last 3 years I was there. But when I first got there, we had Shannon Sharp there, Ed McCaffrey, Rod Smith,
Hall of Famers, man.
Hall of Fame guys who had won Super Bowls a couple years before. And so there was this environment of we are going to win. We know how to prepare. in order to win, and anything less is unacceptable. The city was also behind us in that regard. It was Super Bowl or bust in Denver. And so the expectations were very, very high. And when you make it to the playoffs, you get extra money. So I was stoked about that. I got, some extra money. The irony, though, of making the playoffs for some of the big money guys is they actually take a pay cut to go to the playoffs.
Right.
A guy who makes $5 million a year
Right.
will only make, $18,000 his first week of the wild card.
Right. When he's making like 40 grand.
When he's making like $250,000 a week during the season.
Christ.
Which is a lot of money. I mean, I saw guys who were making $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 a week, which was nuts.
Yeah.
Week!
Yeah. Meanwhile, I was making $4,350 a week on practice squad. Good money, no
Great
doubt.
money.
But in that environment, I was the absolute lowest on the totem pole. But I always enjoyed going to the playoffs. But at the same time, the back end of my career, I also was relieved to be done. Because you don't just play in September, October, November, and December. You get there at the end of March, and you're busting your ass the entire time. Starting April, May, June, July, August, you're fighting for your life with 80 guys who are also doing the same. So it's really intense. And for guys like me who were never guaranteed a spot on the roster, mini camps were like game day. Every fucking practice, every play.
Oh, yeah.
Training camp was game day.
Yeah.
And so by the time you make it to the start of the season, after 4 preseason games in which I was playing the entire time, you've already fucking played a season basically.
Yeah.
And your body's already starting to shut down in week 1. And so it was a relief to be done. And I think it's really important for these guys now that their seasons are over to relax, to heal, to smoke some cannabis.
Yeah.
Not to party too hard. Yeah, maybe go to Vegas once, spend a little bit of that money.
Blow off some steam.
One little anecdote I always thought was really funny was, I can't remember the team, but my O-line coach in Jacksonville told us a story about he was on this team and they were in the NFC Championship game, and one of the old vets stood up and he was like, guys, if we win today, super. We lose today, super. Because he was like, hey, man, if we win, we're going to the Super Bowl. But if we lose, thank fucking God, because I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
I'm done.
Yeah.
And I thought that's really kind of the epitome of like playing in the NFL.
Yeah.
Is
So
that feeling.
What do you guys do when so the season's over? Like, you take 2 weeks, get your head right. Like, what's the bounce back routine? What would you do to be like, okay, I got to, I'm gonna get a little time off. What are you gonna do with that time off? And then, how am I getting back to game shape? How am I preparing for next season? Like, how long? What was the process like?
Well, often for me, it was an injury that I was dealing with because 3 out of my 6 seasons ended on IR with significant injuries that I was rehabbing. And so when everybody else got to go home, I still had to stay around the facility and rehab. The guys who are hurt do not get to just go home.
So you're under the jurisdiction of the team. They're like, you have to sit here and get better.
Until you get a clean bill of health. You show up every day at the time when they tell you, and you complete your rehab, and then you can go. So I was first and foremost concentrating on getting healthy, and then once that was done and I got to leave, I was just trying to get away. I usually went home to California, San Jose, and hung out with family and friends, maybe took a little trip. Later in my career, I had broken up with my longtime girlfriend, and I was like single for the first time, and I went to Europe in the off season alone. I had always wanted to do that, and I had the time and I had the money and I had the will to do it. So I took a 3-week trip, spent a week in London, a week in Amsterdam, and a week in Barcelona all by myself. And it was a really awesome experience.
Amazing.
I got into some really cool conversations with Europeans who don't know shit about American football, and gotten these funny they think because you're wearing pads and a helmet, you are a wimp. You know, oh, you little pansies need to wear your helmets and your protective gear, Meanwhile, like, try a real sport like rugby or like soccer, but we call it football, But little do they know that
that was really good, man.
Thanks, man. But on our football field, you step on that field, you're being attacked by 11 individuals, and you don't need to be holding the ball to be attacked. That's what's different about football from rugby. You can't just hit somebody in rugby because they're standing in front of you. But in football, you can. That's why you need helmets and pads. But I just think these guys should just get away, relax. They're going to be back working out soon enough, and they have plenty of time to get ready.
Yeah, it was a lot of decompressing. Like sleeping in, getting massages, sort of disconnecting. I too was finished the year on IR a couple times and had to stay and get rehab, and you're in the system. But it's really this it's this decompression that takes place. I don't know. That's how I felt. I was always felt like I had run myself to the bone, into the ground at the end of every season, and needed 2 weeks of just like lying in the sun, in a pool, eating food and drinking green drinks and beers.
Right.
And then
so sadness, or was it pretty? You guys are pretty much like, okay, you're feeling good about resting. I'm not too sad about the season being done.
There's definitely, I think there's this grieving process of because you've been so amped up on adrenaline and cortisol and testosterone for so long that your nervous system is shot, and you have this coming down period. I think that's really, it's important to acknowledge that and let that happen.
And you have a lot of time on your hands, and you're not really, it's almost like coming home from war in a way where you don't feel comfortable in this environment. You're sleeping late and you're got to do stuff and talk to people about things, and you really don't know what to do with yourself. I knew at the time I wanted to write, and I knew I liked music, and I wanted to create things, and I would try to use that time to do some of that stuff, to try to develop some of that, which I really think helped me after the fact. Just kind of keeping those skills somewhat sharp helped me after it was over, kind of pick up where I had left off there. But I always did feel a little bit of relief when I got back to training with the guys, because it was predictable. It was fun. Sometimes the off-season training I like working out.
Yeah.
I like working hard. They fed us, they washed all our clothes.
Right.
You're back to being taken care of.
Yeah, it was just hey, everything was kind of taken care of for us, and as long as you show up and work hard, which we all know how to do, then it was all good. And I actually enjoyed the off-season workouts.
So yeah, you're you got that period where you float for a little bit, and then you float back into the bay.
Yeah.
You get dock up in the marina, and now you're back to business eventually.
And the sad thing is, some guys are actually run out of money during that time, where they they spend their yearly paycheck in its entirety in that 2 or 3 months, throughout. Yeah. And so we're not getting paid during this.
By the end of training camp, you're I need my check to come.
Right, because we don't get paid in the off season. We only get paid during that 17 weeks, 1/17 of your salary per week.
Yeah.
And so January, February, March, April, there's no money coming in. A little bit of money in mini camps, May, June, and workouts. You get $100 a day or something for workouts.
Yeah.
But the lifestyle that some of these guys develop, it's not supported by $100 a day. They spend $100 an hour.
No. And guys have families. My family grew after my rookie year. My girlfriend turned fiance, now wife. We had a daughter. And, the off season becomes about spending all your time back with family, getting reacquainted with your family and, spending time with them that you've lost throughout the year. So, and then by the time that sort of settles in, it's here we go. We're back into the grind.
Right.
Yeah, cool. So wild card week coming up, and you got 2 new players on the block, 2 new teams, Titans and the Jaguars. Haven't seen them much
in years.
Yeah. You guys get excited to see the old guard get pushed out? Because I'm really sick of Tom Brady and Ben Roethlisberger, personally.
But they're both still in it, though.
Yeah, they're both still in it. They're both really good. But
it is fun to see the Jags. I'm really excited that they finally got in.
Yeah, as an alum.
Yeah, it's great for them, man. Great for the franchise. Great for the city.
You still feel connected to that team? Do you feel like... I don't know, do you talk to the teammates?
The farther away from it I get, the more connected to it I feel, actually. I think that it was sort of a sour ending there in Jacksonville, for me at least. I was ready to be done. I was ready to be done with my career. I'd really come to, somewhat of an end in myself with the game there. And, but coming back, allowing a lot of that, some of that resentment, anger that may have been there, allowing that to dissolve and finding peace with a lot of that. It's exciting to see the Jags in the playoffs for the first time in, over a decade, 15 years.
Yeah, they were always the doormat.
Yeah.
My first NFL catch was against the Jacksonville Jaguars in Jacksonville.
Okay.
In addition to that, my first ever NFL touchdown was also against the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Really?
In Denver.
Okay.
And my last name is Jackson.
Boom.
Bill.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It all comes
The
together.
town's named after Andrew Jackson,
Hey-o.
your great-great-granduncle.
That's right. That's right. And as far as the Titans, man, there's a guy who I played with in Denver who's kicking ass on the Titans team still. Wesley Woodyard.
Oh, yeah. I played against him.
He's a badass dude.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he's been doing it for a long time.
Dude, my buddy Mercedes Lewis
Oh, yeah. He's
still on the Jags.
Yeah.
I mean, still doing his thing.
Yeah. So that'll be a cool game to watch. I don't know if I'll watch it. But,
Yeah, I probably won't watch it.
But I would really like to see Tom
Jags
Brady
win.
lose,
Yeah.
and Patriots just go away. The whole Belichick genius thing with a sweater, and it's like, come on, man. And I think that's actually these narratives that just won't die. Some of these things that they just dip back into all the time for ratings gold type of thing. I think their reliance on these might be contributing to the fucking falling brand because
sure.
these millennial kids don't care about that stuff.
Right.
You got to find a way to appeal to them. And Chris Collinsworth in the booth talking about Bill Belichick is not going to get you these new fans.
Yeah, well, they're always NFL, any sports league seems very wary of knocking down their anointed champions and handing it over to the next guy. Because they're looking at, next guy, Cam Newton. Well, he's just not all-American enough, and they're looking at the new generation. They're like, well, which one is going to be the right one? Because we really went all in on Robert
Jared
Griffin.
Goff. We got Jared Goff.
Yeah, exactly.
He's tall, he's white, he's thin, he's from Cal.
Yeah, there's you can see that they're just like, oh, well, we don't really know who we want to be the next Tom Brady, and to be the face. Well, really, Peyton Manning would be the person they're looking to replace,
right?
Yeah. And of course, Papa John. We need to replace that guy because
Right.
he has been fired. So Peyton needs a new spokesperson.
We need a new pizza guy.
Yeah, we need a new pizza guy. So,
But look, when you look at who the gatekeepers are to who gets the keys to the castle, they're all former white dude quarterbacks who are kind of preaching that same thing, Stay inside the pocket. This is how you got to look.
Protect the shield.
This is how you got to talk. Exactly. Hit your check downs, do all these things. And I think the game can evolve along with the evolution of the modern athlete because they're stuck in this box of how you play the quarterback position. And, I think I'm looking for a coach to experiment with tactics more than any coaches currently are. When you turn on a football game, you know exactly what these formations are going to look like. You know exactly how it's going to sound and look, and I believe that stagnance is contributing to the ratings slip.
well, a great metaphor for that is the play the Bears have. I've watched the Bears do it a few times, and that's why I'm bringing up the Bears because I know it. Is when on a punt, the receiving team sees the punt go up, and they all start running towards their guy. Like he's the guy who's going to get it. The punters kick the ball in the other direction.
Right.
The receiving team runs into the opposite direction, fools, the kicking team into thinking that's where they're all going.
Yeah.
The ball comes down, the guy has nobody in front of him, and that's
Yeah.
that epitomizes that
with
effect.
Hester.
It epitomizes that thought of
Robots.
predictability.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I'm not looking where the ball is going. I'm following everybody else.
Right.
Absolutely.
And they fooled everybody else.
Well, that's a really savvy play because when you are doing punt or punt return, it's really hard to see that ball.
Right.
You got a helmet on that comes right over your eyebrows. You can't see over you, and you got a really intense job to do as a punt team. You got to read the guys who are trying to block you the whole way and try to play on their leverage and get down to the ball. And when they block you a certain direction, you know that they're being coached to keep you away from the ball. And so you're going to fight against whatever the direction they're trying to put you. What our special teams coach always said, to us is don't go the way of water, which means don't go the way they're pushing you to go. You got to fight against that pressure, and so it's
Good coaching point.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so you'd constantly be fighting against that pressure, and if a savvy team's able to dupe you like that, that's just some real.
Well, it's playing into the behaviors, the program behaviors.
The predictability of it all.
Yeah, exactly.
But I believe that, Tony Romo as an announcer has gotten a lot of accolades this year.
Has he? He's done a nice job.
Everyone loves him.
Nice.
Everyone loves him. And what he's been able to do is he can sit up there and tell you what's about to happen.
Yeah.
Right.
Because he's studied so much film.
Right.
And all the coaches do things exactly the same way.
Yeah.
And so once you know that language and you know what they're all thinking, the next play becomes obvious to choose. And I think that's an indictment on what is wrong with the NFL.
Right.
Tony Romo, great guy, awesome player, nice, sweet dude, but he should not know what the fuck is going to happen.
Right.
And
Right. If Tony Romo's up there predicting what you're going to do, you're in trouble.
Exactly, dude. And so, that's a problem. And I think that the NFL needs to address it by... Or a team needs to hire a fucking innovative coach who's going to try something different,
All right. Also this year, a lot of concussions, and concussion protocol has been kind of pushed into the forefront as how are we going to make this game safer. Is the concussion protocol doing anything? Is it just...
Well, I'll tell you what it is doing. I mean, the one or two games that I saw this year, both times I saw guys go down with concussions, and man, did they fucking get that concussion protocol menu up there on the screen as fast as possible.
Yeah.
To let everybody in America know exactly what they're doing with each guy who gets a concussion.
Right.
And
absolving themselves of liability is what it looks like they're doing. And so that on the back end, if you sue, then they can say, look, we established this concussion protocol. It was agreed to by both parties, and we set you through these things. It's not our fault. It's yours.
Right.
We made changes in the rules to protect players, defenseless players. We're finding players and flagging them for targeting, and helmet to helmet. So anything that happens is not our fault. And so you can't sue us for this. I think this is strictly liability stuff, but it's not an effective on-field measure for getting guys off the field. As you saw a couple times this year, guys were obviously knocked out.
Yeah, they went limp.
Or they had seizures. Fencing response.
Fencing response.
And, they're back on the field shortly after, which shows you that the energy on the field is so manic and so crazy that nobody's thinking straight down there. Not even the quote-unquote independent neurologists who are supposed to be spotting these things and have no affiliation with the teams themselves. And so, I think after the Tom Savage one, the seizure one, and there was a couple other really bad ones, the NFL and the NFLPA did these joint statements and essentially blamed the concussion protocol. So it's almost as if the concussion protocol is this third party,
right?
Liability protector that each of the two entities, the union and the league, can blame when things don't go right. But it seems as if these guys are only getting bigger, stronger, faster, and more aggressive. And sometimes you see guys just hit the ground and their heads hit the ground and they just freaking. I mean, Marquise Goodwin of the Niners, a receiver, had a fencing response the other day in a game. He had a really good game, but this particular hit, he got smashed. He's a tiny guy, and his head bounced off the turf too. And he was like, his arms were flailing on the ground as if he was just, I don't know how to describe it physiologically, but he was. They carted him off the field. They were holding his head up. He was like a bobblehead doll. He didn't go back in the game, but he's tweeting the next day that, hey, symptom free, he's fine, everything's good, no worries, and he obviously has a brain injury.
Yeah.
But
there's a lot of damage happened there.
How do you stop the brain injuries in football? I don't know. My personal belief is you have to start in the trenches where the carnage is kind of the epicenter. The CTE as a brain disease is found most prominently in linemen.
Yeah. Every play, man.
Every play.
Well, yeah, there's the study that where all those guys handed their brains over after they had passed away, and 99 out of 100 of these guys had CTE.
Yeah, it was like 111 out of 112. It was more than that.
Yeah. It was basically almost 100%. And I mean, obviously these are all people who suspected they had CTE, so not a perfect sample, but obvious when guys are like, yeah, I got a brain injury, it's most likely CTE.
Yeah. And so the question becomes, how do you manage the symptoms or mitigate the effects of that in life afterwards? Because if the statistics are correct, Eben and I both have brain damage. Hello.
Yeah, I said it in the intro.
Exactly. And so,
a perfect time to talk about.
I don't remember that. What intro? What's your name?
Perfect time now to segue to cannabis, as cannabis has, now some real science behind it as a good treatment for brain injury. And this morning, the morning we are recording this podcast,
January 4th,
our savvy and intrepid Attorney General Jeff Sessions has rescinded the Cole memo, which was basically the hands-off approach to recreational and medical cannabis in the states. It's still illegal at a federal level, but they've chosen under Obama to basically kind of let it happen and focus on any criminal activity behind the cannabis market, so black market cartels, making sure kids don't get it. That was basically the focus of the Justice Department under Obama and the previous Attorney General. So now he's rescinded that, and what does that mean?
What a forward-thinking move, huh, guys?
Jeff Sessions, man.
What a good idea.
What a great...
First of all, I want to let's just start here. Where does that begin? Like, are California just went rec.
Yes.
We just went recreational. Does that mean California law enforcement are going to start cracking down on all the people that I've seen just around my neighborhood in the last 4 days smoking joints, taking a walk down the street, even though that's not legal?
Right.
But they're just like so elated with this whole thing.
Yeah.
It's like, where are we going to start? How in the fuck do you start rolling this back like that?
Well, this is the technical, what's come out so far is this is a direction to the U.S. attorneys in each state to say, you don't have to follow this rule anymore. If you want to start prosecuting people, you can use, FBI and the DEA to start doing it. State officials will never do anything because it's legal at a state level. So we have our U.S. attorney is a woman named Sandra Brown, and I did a little research on her, and she's been in the Department of Justice for a long time. She was promoted under Obama, and I guess she's an acting attorney, U.S. attorney. So she might not be the permanent person here over the long term, but I have no idea of her position, but I doubt she's going to go out on a limb and start being like, yeah, let's round these people up.
Let's take this thing back 50 years.
And the resources that it would take to do that would be astronomical. But I think Trump has fired a lot of the attorneys that kind of fall under the umbrella of the people who would have the power to do that. And so he's definitely has the power now to hire or nominate some new attorneys who might be more in line with the Jeff Sessions approach. It seems to me like Jeff Sessions needs to have a session himself.
Yeah. We should bring him on the pod.
I bet the man has never had a hit of reefer in his life, and I do declare that if he did have a hit, then he might rescind his rescission of the new rescinded act.
Yeah, that's right. He would. Yeah, I mean, he's the guy who said, I used to like the KKK until I found out they smoked weed. Yeah. And then he wasn't friends. They didn't like the KKK anymore.
He's the fucking U.S. attorney.
So he said that good people don't smoke marijuana.
Yeah. He's a real good guy.
So in spite of that,
KKK.
in spite of what's happening in Washington, which is of course solely political, we do have scientific evidence to suggest that cannabis is very good medicinally for a variety of things, right, Chad?
Absolutely, we do. And just to follow up on your last point, there are quite a few Republican senators from places like Colorado, Nevada, Alaska, where recreational is pretty strong. So the idea of Congress doing anything against recreational and medicinal marijuana is very low. Right. And if they can do anything to, keep Jeff Sessions at bay, it's a possibility they will. But yeah, glass half full. Just to wrap up, I think this is just a roadblock in the whole thing.
Yeah.
It's gonna slow down the money being invested, etc. But
it'll be a laugh at the end of the day. Remember when Sessions was so funny and wanted to rescind the gold medal?
That guy's hilarious.
You know how like a lot of times the politicians who are the most who push the most anti-gay legislation are actually closeted homosexuals.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
What if Jeff Sessions is just the hugest stoner, man? He just goes home,
They're
just
smoking
bong load.
blunts.
He can't stop doing it, and so he's trying to legislate away his own addictions.
Yeah.
The demons.
That's what
The
that's
demons.
the world that we live in. Well,
The
what
demons.
can you do?
So
What can you do?
great cannabis studies, and we're going to go over a couple here.
There's a lot of them.
Yeah. And I highlighted a couple and in a couple different areas of medicine. But an interesting one was CBDs helping people with schizophrenia.
Interesting.
Yeah, I read that, and I think it is interesting. I also have read something that says THC is bad for people with schizophrenia.
Yes. So in this study, they were very clear that this is CBD and not the THC, the psychoactive part.
Right.
But this was done on 90 humans. So 40 of them, 45, 40 of them, nothing. 40 of them took CBD, and they saw a marked improvement in their, antipsychotic behavior.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is, it's just insane.
Well,
Or the opposite,
Or
actually.
it's totally sane.
Yeah,
Right.
it makes them sane. I mean,
something interesting on that point, and I don't know what this exactly helps to illustrate. Maybe the effect of CBD on the pineal gland, the pineal gland. That's our third eye, right? It's our third eye organ where natural endogenous DMT is produced, and all of these intricate neural processes happen out of the pineal gland. Something they found in brain scans is that schizophrenics and heavy meditators, both schizophrenics have hyperactive pineal glands. Heavy meditators also have hyperactive pineal glands. So it's something interesting about, heightened elevation of consciousness and insanity and where the two meet.
does that mean meditation will make you crazy?
Well, I think it's this idea of harnessing the dragon, being able to ride the dragon rather than being destroyed by it,
Right.
Yeah. What if people with schizophrenia are the ones who are actually sane?
What
What if the voices are real?
Right.
It's a spirit. I think it's a question. It's a question to be asked, in our Western society of wanting to label, these psychological, seeming disorders or diseases, putting a label on them as schizophrenia and making these people out to be insane individuals, which, quite frequently are.
Yeah.
Maybe there's something in a more tribal setting, where there was a greater communal sense where shamans sort of, guided the spiritual journeys, the spiritual paths of entire communities. Maybe there might have been less instances of that.
Definitely. Maybe the really insane people are the ones who swallow the American dream hook, line, and sinker and fucking get in line in the rat race.
Just shoot me up, baby. Shoot me up.
Yeah, I mean, man.
So yeah, this was a randomized control study, so it's very legit. You will hear a lot of stuff in the news where they take these kind of studies and they extrapolate a piece of it and say things ridiculous like, "Oh, if you want to lose weight and don't get Alzheimer's, eat a lot of chocolate."
Right.
And it's like, no, they found some chemical in
Right.
chocolate that was like
Helps.
Right.
And
Well,
then
I think the other article that we went over earlier, or that was sent out in our pre-pro meeting, was the THC removing Alzheimer's proteins.
yeah, that one's very interesting as well.
Tell us about that, Jed.
Well, it basically THC can attack the plaque. I believe it's called amyloid.
Plaque
Yes,
attack.
amyloid
The
plaque.
amyloid plaques that form in your brain as you age as well as being a symptom of Alzheimer's and a cause of Alzheimer's. So the THC can actually, let me open up the study. Yeah, here it is. And it inhibits the formation of those plaques, and so it can really, prevent the neurodegenerative disease like Alzheimer's. And I believe there's even something the effect Yeah, it actually can clean up some of that toxic accumulation of the precursor for those plaques as well.
So you mean to tell me that THC is not damaging the neurons, but actually help cleaning them up?
Yes, that's what this study says. And this is actually a study from 2006 was the initial study that kind of kicked off this.
2006?
Yeah, 2006. We've known about this for 10 years. We've seen the promise. And obviously we're not in America studying it too much.
Because of people like Jeff Sessions.
Because of people like Jeff Sessions. And exciting thing about this is the clinical trials are next. So this is actually making a drug,
Right.
and
Giving
trying
it
to get
people.
giving it to people, trying to get a drug to market, which is exciting.
Or you
Very
can just
exciting.
grow the drug in your backyard.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
And use it every day and enjoy life and be happy, and that's cool.
I don't know if it was the same study, but I was reading an article about Alzheimer's and cannabis, and they were doing these rat models, and they would put these mice or rats in a vat of water and have a little ledge for them to find and get out of the water.
Mm-hmm.
And the young rats would swim around for a second, find the ledge, and get out of the water. But the older rats, they'd put them in there, and they'd just swim around in circles. They
Right.
couldn't find the ledge until they give them some cannabis, and they find the ledge. That's fucking crazy.
They find the ledge.
That
So-
is very. It's bizarre to think that this plant has been, just shoved off to the side for so long. When you think about how many people could be benefiting and how many companies could be benefiting as well.
Yeah.
And that's probably why we're seeing a bigger turning of the tide at a political level, is because people are realizing how much money there is,
Right.
not just recreationally, but also medicinally.
There's a lot of tax dollars, man.
Yeah, and I
A
imagine
lot
a
of
lot
tax
of the
dollars.
politicians are starting to be like, you know what? Fuck the pharmaceutical companies. You know what I mean? They're probably getting sick of working with them. I mean, these people have preyed on the American public for years and kept us sick and kept us dependent on a variety of pills and kept the politicians in their pockets. And, there's a lot of really shady practices that have contributed to us being dominated by pills. And I believe maybe some of the politicians even want to try something else and are sick of working with those Merck and Pfizer people.
Well, yeah, they get upset because when somebody gets the exclusive rights to a drug, they jack up the price, and that does come out of everybody's pocket when you're talking about Medicare and Medicaid. So, if you're a politician, you might think that that's not such a good deal for us anymore. If that's what you're going to do every time you get the exclusive rights to a drug is jack up the price, I'm sick of you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And politicians have to answer to their constituents.
Yeah.
And if you represent people in a state where it's now favorable or has become, okay to consume cannabis, well, you better be fighting for that or else your ass is going to be gone.
And also along the same lines, we have cannabis and THC helping people with HIV, because they also experience some severe mental decline as well, which I didn't realize that was a thing that happened because I don't have AIDS. Anybody here have AIDS?
Not that I know of, no.
Okay, cool.
No.
Cool. Yeah. But they did a 40-person study based on people who had used marijuana. This is not a clinical study. This is not people in, stuck in a lab or rats in a lab. This is kind of a self-reporting study of, the people who had HIV and were smoking cannabis. They found basically the anti-inflammatory nature of THC seemed to help mentally, cognition, keep it from, deteriorating over time.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So there are infinite benefits. I think the goal here is for us to find the balance and not start to lean on cannabis too much,
Right,
and
right.
smoke it all day long and think that it's a cure-all to everything you got going on. Because I'm sure as consumers of cannabis, we all can agree that sometimes you can take it too far,
Absolutely.
and
No doubt.
you can get yourself into a hole, And what we want to do is figure out how to not get in that hole, but to reap the benefits and to live a complete life and be more powerful, smarter, better, healthier because of this plant and not overtaken by it.
Yeah, it's important to not go down the road of refinement, and that's what we did with alcohol, because I think for thousands of years
Yeah.
it was beer and wine, And then all
what do you mean refinement?
Refinement is, distilling it down to its most powerful form.
Right. Like dabbing type of thing?
Yeah, like dabbing, because, with alcohol, hard alcohol became a problem, and that's why we had prohibition, because it wasn't a thing until, people realized how much more cost-effective it was to use your grain and turn it into whiskey as opposed to try to ship it across the country and have half of it rot. So they're like, turn it into whiskey. Boom, money. Same thing with cocaine. I mean, people chew coca leaves for thousands of years, and then somebody made cocaine, and cocaine is terrible. I mean, for the most part, it's terrible. Yeah. But if we walked around chewing coca leaves, we'd be fine. Right. It's like a tea leaf. So yes, the refinement, turning it into the dabs, and people, especially young kids, smoking way too much. And and having that be their life, it can contribute to that sedentary lifestyle.
Well, going back even further on the alcohol side, did you know the Bavarian Beer Act of 1516 was the church mandated that beer could no longer be made with mushrooms?
Nice.
Because for a long time it was fermented mushrooms, and these were like psychedelic meads that people were having these spiritual experiences with. And, the church didn't want that. The church wanted to be in between man and his God. And so they created the Bavarian Beer Act, ixnaying mushrooms and any brewing of alcohol.
Wow.
And, creating another buffer between man and his higher power.
Wow.
That sounds amazing.
I think we could let's do some mushroom teas.
Yeah.
We could do that sometime.
Yeah. All right.
I mean, I think we are all mentally strong enough to explore those outer rings of consciousness, mindfully enough to come back.
Well, I think it's
come back, and not to believe that we need to live out there all the time.
Right.
There's the people who are constantly fucked up and dabbing all day and smoking blunts all day long, and then just staring at their phones. That's creating a really kind of
another zombie.
And so, like, the people were like, yeah, smoke weed every day, weed. I mean, that's something we need to push against too, because the kind of the cultural appropriation of, like, it's cool to smoke weed all day long type of thing. No, it's not. And you're not going to get your best out of yourself. You're not going to feel your best. You're not going to be sharp if you're smoking weed all day long.
Getting high all day long.
Right.
Is the real.
You're right, because there's methods of ingestion that don't get you high and that keep you balanced for people who actually need it.
Right.
Yeah. So that's what we're trying to find out here on the Mindful Warrior.
Finding that balance, man. Right.
Exactly.
Fuck.
And to wrap it up, cannabis and opioids. We know opioids are a terrible problem for you guys, and then also people all across the country. Just deciding to hitch their wagon to the opioid train when things aren't working out. They got pain, they have unemployment, whatever. Opioids are available. Sometimes they're cheap. They start out cheap, that's for sure.
Highly addictive.
Yeah. But University of New Mexico did a study with 83 chronic pain patients. So these are the prime target for opioids. And the ones that used cannabis, over time, 34% of those kicked the habit totally and were no longer on any prescription pills. And they compared that to the non-using cannabis patients, and there are only 2% of those people were able to rid themselves of the opioid habit.
That's pretty. That's an impressive jump.
Yeah, and that holds true for me as well. I've experimented with opioids and never really liked them. They never really sank their fangs into me. There were a couple times where I did start feeling a certain dependence on them, even after a week of taking them. But what I did to wean myself off of them was smoked a little cannabis, and I was able to drop the pills and then even drop the cannabis. I mean, it wasn't like I needed to keep smoking cannabis to take the place of that. It was healing from an acute injury and allowing myself to heal faster, because I feel like our country is definitely awoken to the opioid scourge, and things are going to change there. I think that's 100% happening, but there are drug addicts who are not going to change.
Well, I mean, you see open dialogues happening with, Chris Christie and Athletes for Care.
Yeah.
Over in New Jersey.
That's right. Well, he's down with it medically,
sure,
but against, as many politicians are, against the recreational use. So these blurry lines are, easy for politicians to draw in the sand and stand on
Right.
one side of. Whereas I believe, and I think you guys believe too, that sometimes quote unquote recreational cannabis use can have medicinal effects for someone,
Absolutely.
unbeknownst to them. It might balance them, and it might make them more docile, sleep better, communicate better with their family, whatever it might be. But I believe that I instinctively reached for it as an adolescence because it married with the realities of my own physiology and my body. It was medicinal for me at an early age. I was kind of an ADD type of kid. It brought me down into a more calm
Civil.
demeanor. Exactly.
Well, I think that's one of the things. It's a very civilizing tool.
Yeah.
I think is an interesting way to put it.
Yeah, people don't get high and super rowdy and beat each other up like
Right.
in a pub.
You're
No.
brought down to your most docile, your calmest, your most peaceful state. Even in some cases to couch lock, to asleep. I mean that's how cannabis generally affects people. You never see these, violent outbursts as a cause of a cannabis consumption event. And I think that's really interesting. Something I want to touch on, I don't know how much you guys know about it, but a little something I'm really interested in, some of this cannabis mythology and where cannabis comes from. Cannabis, breaking it down, it means two dogs. Cannabis, the dog, two dogs. And there is an African tribe, the Dogon tribe, in West Africa, where I guess they believe some of the earliest findings of the cannabis plant were. And this tribe has an annual celebration for cannabis because this highly civilized species from the planets, or the stars, Sirius A and Sirius B, the two dog stars. This race came from these stars, brought cannabis to the Dogon tribe, and said, this will bring you peace. Wow. And back in the 70s, I believe it was, there was a French explorer who came to the Dogon tribe, and he was invited into their sacred caves, where they have plotted out the course of these Sirius A and Sirius B star around in their
celestial journey.
Yes, celestial journey.
Yeah.
And they plotted it out perfectly, and of course it's from thousands and thousands of years ago, before any of the modern equipment to do such a thing, right? And I think that's fascinating as an idea of where this plant comes from, because it has such a profound civilizing effect on human beings.
What do you guys think what do you guys think theoretically the stumbling upon it? Like, how did they stumble? The first humans stumble upon it. Like, did they light it on fire? Like, try to burn it for some reason?
Bush.
And they were like, "Whoa,
Yeah,
that's crazy!"
What the burning bush was.
The burning bush.
They tried to cook it and eat it. Like, what do you guys think? The first guy.
Well, I do think I read The Cosmic Serpent, and as did you, about ayahuasca in Peru. But what these shamans talked about was how plants actually speak to them.
Right.
The plants tell them what to do. For example, there is a plant. There's a sorry, my headphones are. I think Gandalf's messing up my headphones. For example, there is a plant that's in the wild that is the antidote for a snake bite, a venomous snake bite.
Right.
And they said, "How'd you know that?" And they said, "Well, those two little fang leaves on there showed us that that's what you do when you get bit by a snake." So I imagine there is an element of the plant talking to us.
Plant intelligence.
Exactly, and telling us what to do with it. And I imagine if you were sick or you had something going on and you're walking through the forest and you see this thing, it might be talking to you. It might tell you exactly what to do. Pick it, pack it, fire it up, come along.
If
you know what I'm
we
saying?
were
Build
still,
yourself a bomb.
Yeah, I think if we were still in touch with that sense in nature,
Right.
Feeling the vibrations, being able to, get that knowledge from plants, however it might be. I mean, these shamans, they're spending months and months in the jungle just taking hallucinogenics and and getting in touch with nature and the spirits and crossing dimensions, and really living in that world. But for people who don't do that because, you know, not all of us could probably handle that type of experience on a daily, monthly scale like that.
Yeah, it's like being unanchored from a normal life would be terrifying for a lot of people. To do that, it's one thing to do it for a couple hours, but doing that days and days on end, not having the tether that we're used to having in life,
Right.
would, you know, but it also opens your mind, and
It
that's
does.
obviously what those guys figure out.
And it's also in case something goes down someday where we do have to go off the grid. Maybe what if our power goes out and no one can turn on their phones? What are people going to do?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Freak the fuck out.
Exactly. What's going to happen when you actually have to use your survival skills or your mind and pay attention to nature? And so in some ways, we should start preparing for that that possibility by turning off your phone for 2 hours a day, you know?
Yeah.
Go out and run an errand without your phone with you.
Yeah.
Don't rely on, you know, your phone to get you somewhere. Look ahead of time at a map and then fucking go there, find it. You know, there are ways in which we're becoming so dependent on these technologies that we can't hear the plants when
Right,
they're talking to
the
us.
things that are already there.
That
here
we're
for
wired
us.
to hear,
Yeah.
exactly. And so,
I mean, fuck, man. In most cases, we're not even listening to each other. We can't even communicate with each other face to face anymore.
yeah.
You know.
So, apocalypse it is.
Well,
Apocalypse 2018.
On our way. Got a good start.
we're here to push back, right, guys?
Amen, man.
We're here to push back. And, hey, Jed, I want to tell you, man, great job.
Yeah,
Great
unbelievable. Thank you, facilitator.
Pod facilitator. That's the sound of Jed actually beating his chest.
Yeah.
All right.
Hell yeah.
So
Well,
let's not forget to tell people about our socials, you know, at the Mindful Pod on Twitter.
That's right.
At Mindful Warrior Podcast on Instagram.
That's right.
Soon to have a mindfulwarriorpodcast.com. That's going to be coming.
Absolutely.
And check us out on iTunes. And if you like it,
Yeah, write a review.
Write a
Give us a
review.
review.
Yeah. Or send us money or something, you know?
Yeah.
Just like
Yeah,
tell
or
us
maybe,
we're cool.
You know, you've got some cool products you'd like us to test out for you and maybe advertise.
Also, hey, if you guys have some suggestions on people you think would be good for this pod as guests, we're trying to figure out what we're all about, and so we'd love some suggestions. Experts in their own field or forward thinkers, athletes, whatever it might be. Send us some suggestions, and we'll get you on the pod.
Send
Love
us
it.
on Twitter. Yeah, hit us up at MindfulPod. Send us any questions you have as well.
Awesome.
Well,
That's going to wrap it up.
Really exciting, guys.
yeah, good pod, guys.
Great.
We'll see you guys next time on The Mindful Warrior.
Later.
Thanks for listening to the Mindful Warrior Podcast, brought to you by Athletes for Care, a health and wellness resource for athletes of all ages. Don't miss out on Nate's books, Slow Getting Up and Fantasy Man. Be sure to check out BringTheHurt.com, a pain advocacy platform dedicated to alternative healing practices. Visit BeTrueOrganics.com for all of your CBD needs. Use promo code BRITAIN, all caps 10, for a 10% off discount.